A tentative agreement has been reached between freight rail companies and the unions that represent tens of thousands of workers. President Biden said it took all night to reach a deal, preventing what could have been a devastating hit to the economy.
The rail system literally is the backbone of the nation. And people are now learning out of necessity about what a supply chain means. 2 years ago, people didn't know, nor should they know what a supply chain, all the consequences of the pandemic and the rest. But both business and labor, they work through this, they work through the supply, and it's just critical. They're keeping the economy moving. We got a way to go, but I want to thank them all, business and labor.
ABC News business reporter Alexis Christoforous and ABC News transportation producer Sam Sweeney join me now to talk more about this. Sam, I'm going to start with you. These workers were threatening to strike over what really seems like basic benefits for full-time employees. What exactly were the workers dealing with on a daily basis, and what did they ask for, and what did they get?
Well, Phil, they were, of course, asking for more money, but one of the sticking points was actually about scheduling. It's a complicated process to schedule these railroad workers, 60,000 of them in total, in 2 unions, because they work several-day shifts, and oftentimes they are scheduled just moments or hours before a shift. And what they were asking for was the ability to take off, to go to a doctor's appointment or take their child to a doctor's appointment and not be penalized. They had a point system in place before, so every time they called out, despite not being paid, they still got a point. And if you got so many points, you then faced losing your job. And they were trying to negotiate new terms under this contract. In addition to a 24% raise, which they got, they will also get $1,000 a year bonuses. And this will be retroactive back to 2020.
Alexis, nearly a third of the freight in the U.S. moves by rail, second only to trucking. How would this strike have impacted the economy? I mean, we've been talking for days about how this would have had a massive impact on it, but really, what would it have done?
Yeah, Phil, I think I'm hearing the collective sigh of relief from our nation's retailers here, because had there been a strike, it could have been devastating for consumers and for businesses. You know, our supply chains are still recovering from all the turmoil caused by the pandemic. This would have just upended a lot of that progress, and it would have cost businesses more to get goods from point A to point B, and they would have most likely have passed those costs along to consumers who are already dealing with the highest inflation in 40 years. And I want to make a point that food in particular would have been impacted. So much of our food is transported via rail, and we know that food costs led inflation higher last month. And then outside of that, you've got millions of commuters who could have been impacted. People outside of the Northeast corridor may not have had a way to get to work. So this would have been a huge hardship, not only for American consumers, but for businesses.
Talk about the food. Yesterday, we were talking about the price of eggs up 40%. And
Good
then
memory,
this would,
Phil.
yeah, it was just yesterday. You go 2 days ago, I won't remember it. But yeah, I mean, that's 40%.
Yeah.
And then if this had happened, that was a real fear. Sam, how was this deal reached, if you know the details on it? And was it reached in any kind of unprecedented way?
I mean, this has been going on for months, since July. They were in a cooling off period, and that cooling off period ended Friday morning at midnight. The president stepped in the final hours last night, actually calling that negotiating room over the Department of Labor and saying, get a deal done. The consequences could be catastrophic, as we've been saying. It would hit farmers. It would hit all Americans across the country. As you said, 1/3 of all of this freight is moved by rail, and it would have sent prices soaring. Shelves would have been empty. And again, it would have been a disaster for farmers and, of course, our fuel prices. So the president said, get a deal done. The labor secretary worked for the last several days, and finally they were able to negotiate something early this morning.
Sam, it's a tentative deal. They're calling it a tentative deal. What happens next?
So over the next couple of weeks or even months, these union workers will vote on this tentative agreement. But in the meantime, they have agreed not to strike. So barring any unforeseen problems, they will go forward with a vote and approve it, and then they will get that contract. And again, that pay will be retroactive.
All right, and Alexis, while you are here, the business reporter, I want to talk about the overall health of the economy, right? When it comes to mortgages, retail sale, gas prices, you just talked about food, moving into, what is it, next week's Fed meeting?
Right.
So expected to raise interest rates yet again. We've been talking about inflation. We saw President Biden take a victory lap on the same day we got those inflation numbers.
Right.
So I think Americans are getting mixed signals, to say the least, I think.
It's a good way to put it. I think we're all fatigued with all this talk of high inflation. There were two important data points out today, and I'm going to give you the good news first. Retail sales unexpectedly rose 0.3% last month. And what I found interesting was it was moved higher by auto sales, even though it's more expensive now to finance a car because of all those interest rate hikes from the Federal Reserve. So once again, we're seeing that consumers are resilient even in the face of these high prices. Now for the bad news, it has become more expensive to finance a home. Mortgage rates are going up. Now the 30-year mortgage topping 6% for the first time since 2008. That was at the height of the financial crisis. Look where we were just a year ago. That rate was below 3%. And as you said, expect these rates to move higher in the weeks ahead. We're looking at the Fed raising rates again next week to combat high inflation. Could be looking at the third straight 0.75 of a percentage point rise from the Fed.
Yeah, that number on the screen is devastating, especially to first-time home buyers.
For sure.
All right, Alexis Christoforous, thank you so much. Sam Sweeney, thank you as well for taking us through the day.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.